Welcome to the Ice House Student Success Program Product Demo webinar. I'm Bree Langamo. I'm the president of the Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative. Thank you so much for joining me today for an overview of the Ice House Student Success Program. If you have any questions while I'm moving through the webinar, please submit your questions in the panel on the side, and I will get to them at the end of the webinar. I will definitely leave some time to answer your questions. Excited to be with you today. I've spent just a little bit about myself. I've spent over 10 years in higher education at Sinclair Community College and Pikes Peak Community College. I've worked a number of student success initiatives, worked on the Completion by Design Bill and Melinda Gates grant to double the number of graduates, worked with Lumina Foundation on the Developmental Education Initiative. I've led task forces with advising, academic planning, orientation. And so student success has always been a passion of mine, but I also learned very quickly that it's difficult to move or significantly move the needle on student success, with the biggest challenge being how we engage students in their education and their lives. And so I believe that student engagement is the key to student success. And I believe in the potential of Ice House. I've seen it work. And I'll share a little bit more about that with you later, some data. And I left higher education to work with education institutions around the world to implement this curriculum. So let's go ahead and jump in just to tell you a little bit about the Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative. So we're a global thought leader with a mission to expand human potential through entrepreneurial mindset education. And we do that through professional development, training, consulting, and curriculum. We're the creators of Ice House, and we partner with academic institutions from youth programs to high schools to community college, universities, graduate leadership programs, national, international, and we also work with governments, nonprofits, NGOs around the world to empower their constituents with an entrepreneurial mindset. So our objectives for the webinar is I want to share a little bit about what we foresee as the challenge before all of us, the solution that we're providing. I'll jump into details about the program, including a demo and a learning management system. And then I want to share some use cases as well as national and international partnerships that Eli has developed. So let's jump into the challenge. Many of you may be familiar with the Gallup statistic that 87% of employees around the world are not engaged in the work they do. When you break this down, we see that 24% are actively disengaged, meaning they're working against the mission of the organization. 63% are not engaged, and 13% are engaged. Now imagine if we could flip this data and have 13% disengaged and the remaining 87% engaged. We have a vast reservoir of untapped potential right in front of us. And what we work to do is to really study the 13% engaged, who tend to be hyper-engaged entrepreneurial people working to solve problems that they care about, and what can we learn from them that can be applied in the classroom and in our lives. The engagement issue starts long before graduates enter the workforce. Gallup also has the student engagement cliff, and you can see a 35% drop in engagement from elementary to high school. It's really no wonder that some students arrive at college disengaged. In fact, some of the data is showing that in fact is the case. The United States has fallen to 16th in the world for college credential completion, yet by 2018, two-thirds of jobs will require post-secondary degrees. And what we know is in community colleges, less than half of entering students will graduate with a degree within 6 years. And for universities, only 19% will graduate in 4 years. And with higher education funding models shifting from access to college to completion, we really need to find ways to do better. So not only do we have a student engagement and a student completion issue, when we do produce graduates, employers are demanding that they be entrepreneurial. In fact, 77% of employers report that soft skills such as communication, problem solving, teamwork, and self-motivation, are as important as technical skills. And 16% of those report that, in fact, the soft skills and what employers are now calling foundational skills are actually more important than technical skills. We're also seeing that 50% of college graduates are unemployed or underemployed. So it's actually not really a shortage of college graduates, but employers are in fact demanding a more innovative and entrepreneurial workforce. What we know is the world is changing and it's becoming much more highly complex. There are more complex problems for graduates to solve. We know that careers aren't defined the same way as they have been in the past. In fact, students may not just work for one employer, they may work for multiple employers, with 40% of the workforce by 2018 being independent contractors. It may be that graduates take their skills and abilities and solve problems for multiple employers through independent contracting. And so we also know that through the World Economic Forum that 65% of children entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types that don't even exist yet. So how do we prepare students to thrive in an increasingly complex and highly uncertain world? So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. The World Economic lists that entrepreneurship is an essential life skill that every student will need to survive in the 21st century. In fact, they have this great chart of defining what exactly are those 21st century skills. Of course, we have the foundational literacies that students will need. What we're more interested in is getting to the competencies and character qualities through Ice House. And so how students approach those complex challenges with critical thinking, problem solving, and problem finding, creativity, communication, collaboration, and then how students can approach changing environments with a sense of curiosity and initiative, having persistence, resiliency, and grit, being adaptable, being leaders, and having social and cultural awareness. And as you can see, wrapped around here is lifelong learning. Ice House, when we created Ice House Student Success, we aligned the competencies and outcomes to the World Economic Forum's 21st century skills. The Chronicle of Higher Education last May 2015, headlined their journal with an article about colleges turning to entrepreneurship education to produce work-ready graduates and next-generation innovators through experiential learning. And in just a bit here, we'll talk a little bit about the experiential learning component of Ice House. Here's the front page of the journal article, just so you have the information if you'd like to go back and read it. Really talking about how everyone's an entrepreneur, and in universities that are looking to teach undergrads to be self-starters, and a number of great best practices and examples in the article of how institutions are moving entrepreneurship to the core of education. Harvard Business Review recently had an article within the last year as well about entrepreneurship being a key 21st century workforce skill, but also linked to higher academic achievement. And this part's important. We're going to talk about entrepreneurial learning and how students learn through Ice House, very critical to understanding how the entrepreneur and the student learns and how that leads to higher academic achievement in other academic areas. In fact, in this article, the Harvard Business Review points to a New York University study where students who took an entrepreneurship program reported that 90% reported that the entrepreneurial learning helped them be successful in other academic courses, but that 95% found the entrepreneurship program to be a life skills course. So World Economic Forum, and this is really the mission of ELI right here, is it's not enough to add it to the perimeter. It really needs to be at the core of the way education operates. And what we often see with entrepreneurship education is that it's buried in the business division for students who self-select into it, rather than being readily available to all students. And so To move to the core of education, we must first redefine entrepreneurship. It can no longer really be defined just as a business course in which students self-select for the purpose of business creation. It's really more than an academic discipline and reaches far beyond business creation and small business management. We need to offer entrepreneurship education more broadly to empower students to remain adaptable when facing obstacles, persist through failure, communicate better, and become problem solvers and opportunity finders. And as we already mentioned, entrepreneurship is really, it embodies the 21st century workforce skills that every student needs. So how do we move entrepreneurship from the perimeter to the core? One institution I came from at Pikes Peak Community College, my last role there was the Dean of Business, Public Service, and Social Sciences. And I helped implement a rollout of Ice House. I think about 2,500 students at PPCC have now completed the Ice House program as a student success course. And what we found out early on, fall to spring with semester student persistence, we were really looking for a number of things here. We were trying to truly engage students in their education and their lives. We were looking for student persistence, fall to spring, fall to fall, an impact on student completion, but we're also really looking to create employable graduates as an additional outcome. What we found was a 28% impact on student persistence or re-enrollment in the spring semester for students who took Ice House compared to those who didn't take it. And then those students went on and had a 14% impact on college level success rates compared to those who had not taken Ice House. In the beginning weeks, and this was a comparative data study with a more traditional student success program, it was a blind study, so students didn't know if they were going into Ice House or the other course. We found a 7% impact. There was 7% less students dropped Ice House in the beginning weeks, which of course we know that day one, week one, semester one is absolutely critical to student retention. And so those were good numbers. When you're talking about a significant number of incoming students, and this was required of developmental education students, which was, I think, about 1,500 a semester, maybe a little bit less. But the 7% impact was, those were real students. So that was considered a big success. I know in working on student success initiatives and other areas like advising and whatnot, we always looked for kind of a 3 to 5% moving the needle, but we never anticipated that we would see such success with Ice House. At the end of the semester, we surveyed students, and this was an interesting point that came back from the students, and one that we were hoping for. 89% of students reported they understood how an entrepreneurial mindset could help them succeed in their academic, professional, and personal lives. Pikes Peak has a great video that they created with faculty and students. It's on our website under resources and case studies, and can include this in a follow-up email to you. But just to hear what faculty saw occur in the classroom and then students report out the impact of instilling the entrepreneurial mindset at the onset of their academic journey was quite significant. So with all that said, let's talk a little bit about the program and start digging in there. So the Ice House Student Success Program, it's a student success course or a first-year experience that inspires and engages new students during their first semester in college. It's also been used for dual credit high school students, so I'll share some of that in the use cases portion of the webinar. But really what we're trying to do is instill the perseverance and determination of an entrepreneurial mindset needed to succeed academically and in life. And the program encompasses student success concepts in the context of an entrepreneurial mindset, and it provides for problem-based experiential learning beyond the classroom, which helps students make connections and build relationships that can support them throughout college and beyond. The goal really being that students are empowered to take ownership of their future while helping them develop the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that will enable them to succeed not only in school but in life. It was designed by experts in student success, so a number of faculty who've taught student success for some time, academic deans, learning assistance directors. It was influenced by research and data from the National Resource Center for First Year Experience, from SESI, from the John Gardner Institute, and the Collegiate Employment Research Institute. So quite a bit of research went into developing competencies for the course, and also what outcomes we were trying to achieve through the program. The program is based on over a decade of research and hundreds of interviews with entrepreneurs, which was originally funded by the Cisco Entrepreneur Institute. And one of the most compelling interviews was that of Pulitzer nominee Clifton Talbert, also the founder of the Stairmaster. And during the interview, he shared the wisdom that he gained from his uncle Cleve, an unlikely entrepreneur in the 1950s Mississippi. And so the companion text of the program is Who Owns the Ice House? 8 Life Lessons from an Unlikely Entrepreneur. And in the book, Clifton chronicles his journey from his life in the Mississippi Delta at the height of legal segregation and the life-changing influence of his uncle Cleve. And then at the end of each chapter is kind of a timeless application that's captured with the entrepreneurial life lessons that can empower anyone to succeed. It's a powerful and compelling story that really captures the essence of an entrepreneurial mindset and the unlimited opportunities it can provide. And it's Uncle Cleve is sort of the protagonist to the program, although there are a number of other unlikely real-world entrepreneurs that are used as supporting video case studies. And we always say, to students, if you think about no matter your circumstances, culture, wherever you are in life, there's the power of choice. And we're going to dig into lesson 1 and talk a little bit about the power of choice, just to give you a sample lesson in a bit here. But we always, ask, what would Uncle Cleve do? Because he was in a very adverse situation, but somehow managed to empower himself through this mindset, which was different than others around him. And he could see, problems as opportunities. He had a growth mindset versus a victim mindset, and he considered life as classroom. And so he was always in the pursuit of knowledge. Despite having a 4th grade education and not coming from money, power, or privilege, he was able to succeed. And that all led into the development of the program and the 8 life lessons. And just to differentiate for a moment between the Who Owns the Ice House book, which is the compelling story, the program itself digs much deeper into the social and behavioral sciences and the concepts that underlie developing this mindset. And so you can see here the power of choice, recognizing opportunity, bringing ideas to action, the pursuit of knowledge, being resourceful, being reliable, building a community of positive influence, critical guidance and support, and then the perseverance and determination are really the hallmarks of an entrepreneurial mindset that encourages students to persist in the face of challenges, setbacks, and self-doubt. And that lesson focuses somewhat on resiliency from Martin Seligman's work in giving students tools to bounce back. So each of the lessons digs deeper into the concepts. There are a number of objectives and outcomes that we're working to achieve with each. And you can see here a sample of lesson 1 and how the student would experience the program. They would read a PDF, and then you can see there are videos embedded, 30-second to 2 or 3 minute videos, and they're really just supporting case studies to the concepts that the students are reading. And so Clifton Talbert always introduces each chapter with kind of describing the lesson that he learned from Uncle Cleve relating to the specific lesson being covered. And then you can see lesson 1 objectives on the right: vision, the power to choose, influence, the hidden factors that influence the choices we make, reacting versus responding, locus of control, planning for success, and focus. And I'm going to simulate a lesson for you in just a moment here. These are the faces of the Ice House entrepreneurs and students that have video case studies in the program. And on the bottom row, you can see a number of students that reinforce some of the lessons. On the bottom right corner is Beverly Brown. And she does a great job reinforcing to students how she had a victim mindset and wasn't really aware of it. But now she's been able to shift to a growth mindset that's really kind of changed her whole life. And one of the lessons on lesson 2 on turning problems into opportunities was impactful to her as well. So like I said before in the PDF, these are embedded from 30-second to 3-minute clips. They're very powerful stories. These are folks who appear very successful, but they all have stories of how they had to get there. They're very unlikely stories, and a lot of them will say, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur, but they were people who were entrepreneurial, and they had the mindset to succeed despite their circumstances. So the first component of the program that we just discussed is really digging into the mindset and developing the entrepreneurial mindset through the 8 life lessons. The second major component is engaging students in the entrepreneurial learning process. And the way we do that is through the opportunity discovery canvas. And so students work through this in 3 phases. They decide what problem they want to solve. Now that may be a business that they ultimately want to create, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a campus problem, it could be a community problem, it could be a personal problem. But what they're doing in each of these phases is going out to talking to people and understanding that ideas never arrive fully formed. And there's a number of iterations that they'll go through with the canvas. And what they find in phase 1 is that problem finding is as important as problem solving. So people usually want to immediately jump to the solution, but it's as important to determine that you've actually found the right problem by talking with stakeholders. It's only then that you start getting into the solution. And again, the same thing, talking to stakeholders about have they found the right solution. And once they find a problem solution fit, are they creating value that people would be maybe willing to purchase, but maybe not even money may not be the value point. It may be that someone has finally bought into the idea. And so what we see is, students, a lot of social entrepreneurship are using this process for service learning, really impactful work that's coming and being owned by the student. And we are also seeing that some students do go on and become so engaged in the idea and the problem they were trying to solve that they do turn it into a business. And so it's exciting to see that come to fruition, as well as we know entrepreneurial startups are good for the economy. It's just not the only purpose of having an entrepreneurial mindset in business creation. It's one potential outcome. Jaime Casab from Google Global Education has a great quote and really ties back to what we're trying to do with the opportunity discovery canvas is don't ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, but what problems they want to solve and then what they need to learn to solve it. And when students work through the opportunity discovery process, what's occurring there is, one, they're finding a problem that they want to solve that they care about, but also they're developing those entrepreneurial skills. And it becomes a way of thinking when you start working through the process and keep working that way, you become a much more solution-oriented person. You also realize that in order for your ideas to be successful, whether you're going to work for an employer or you're going to start your own business, that you need to build buy-in, and it's a process that works for building buy-in by seeking input. Key component of the program is how students learn in entrepreneurial learning. It's a problem-based, peer-to-peer experiential learning model, which also ultimately leads to self-directed learning, which is what we want students to move from dependent to independent learners, really taking ownership of their education. And so it's important in the program that the facilitator not tell students what problem they're going to solve, but to let them take ownership in that process. The peer-to-peer learning is important because oftentimes the faculty in the room is the expert. A novice who's just come to an understanding of a concept can often better explain it to their peer because they've just reached the understanding rather than having had it for a decade or more. And so the peer-to-peer learning is critical as well. Through peer workshops in discussing ideas, it also requires students to be able to articulate their ideas, make a case for their ideas, and that's where some of the critical thinking and communication skills come in as well. Experiential learning component is pushing them outside the building and really having them talk to people about what the problem they're trying to solve, and how they plan to solve it. Students consume content, they discuss it, they are completing reviews, multiple choice reviews, just to assess basic knowledge comprehension. There are opportunities and application assignments for them to apply the lesson content, to immerse them in real-world problem-based entrepreneurial experiences. Probably most importantly is the opportunity to individually reflect and apply what they're learning to their own goals, academic and life goals. And so that's a critical component as well. The program provides discussion questions, application assignments, reflection assignments, the multiple choice review. It's not a prescriptive program. It's meant to kind of align with your own competencies for your course. And you can add content if you want to. You can take away content. It's built to integrate into your learning management system and be very flexible. It's an all digital content delivery. So if you do have a learning management system, the program comes with full integration. And I'll do a demo of a Moodle learning management system in just a moment here. If you don't have a learning management system, we will set you up a Moodle course shell. It can be offered as full semester, half semester. It can be offered in the classroom or online. In a 1 credit hour or 3 credit hour version. We found that many student success courses are only offered in the 1 credit hour version. And a couple ways to do that is, one, with the 1 credit hour focusing on the 8 life lessons and developing the mindset, or you could focus on the first 4 lessons and engage them in the entrepreneurial process. It doesn't provide the amount of time to engage them in the entrepreneurial mindset lessons as well as the entrepreneurial process, because it's such a limited 1 hour a week type of program. So facilitators are equipped to be successful. We have a lot of materials, from the facilitator manual to facilitator prep guidelines, syllabus and recommended course schedule, lesson guide for each lesson. The quizzes are embedded, and as I mentioned, all the discussion, application, reflection, video case studies, in-class activities, icebreakers. There are also lesson assessment rubrics for each type of assignment, and a lot of supplemental resources. These are the Jeanette Outcomes that the program achieves, and as I mentioned before, these are aligned with the World Economic Forum's 21st Century Skills. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is to drive student engagement and strengthen student learning. We want students to develop entrepreneurial skills, attitudes, and behaviors. And hopefully the impact is, and what we've seen so far, is an improvement in student persistence, an increase in college course pass rates, and with the goal ultimately of college completion and then producing the graduates that employers are seeking in the workforce. This is a very busy slide, but important to those of you who have existing student success courses that you're trying to tie or use Ice House to deliver as a delivery mechanism. Like I said, we looked at the top national standards and kind of compiled them into a number of different student success competencies, and then we created a lesson assignment or assessment for each of the competencies. So if you one of your goals or your competencies for your existing course is to have students use campus resources, develop a support network, develop effective time or money management strategies, career exploration planning, create an academic plan, note-taking, study skills, academic skills. We have a number of lesson assessments. So wherever there's an X, it helps you in the manual to kind of immediately go there and say, okay, in lesson 2 opportunity, there's a lesson assignment on how to use campus resources. There's also one in lesson 7 in the practical application. It's meant to be a tool to help you kind of quickly make sure that you're achieving the competencies that you need to for the course that you have that already exists. And then, of course, the 21st century skills are the Jeanette Outcomes that we're trying to get to. In the manual, at the end of each assignment is a list of competencies as well. So it's just a different way of looking at it. A short-term goal that we like to see in the program is that there's actually a shift in mindset, a shift in attitude. And so we suggest this entrepreneurial mindset self-assessment as a pre and a post. And it comes with some reflection questions for students. We expect at the beginning that some of these they may not agree with. Like, I have a focused vision to guide my future plans. I have clear goals set to reach my vision. I make decisions in support of my vision. Maybe at the time they start the class, they are disagreeing. But hopefully by the end of the program, they are agreeing a little bit more and then can reflect on the shift in mindset that they've seen. All of the questions in the self-assessment are tied to the outcomes of each lesson. Eli provides implementation support, so we obviously help with course setup and making sure it's within your learning management system. I do quite a bit of work in aligning competencies and measuring outcomes and helping institutions that want to develop logic models or evaluation plans to measure the program. A lot of times, it's a pilot that's rolled out or a comparative data study. But also, I look through syllabi and competencies and can kind of quickly align to Ice House student success to ensure that you do achieve the competencies that you need to. And then we have a great technical support team if there's any issues, which once it's embedded in your learning management system, we haven't really seen a lot of support needed for technical, but we're always willing to work with your distance learning folks to ensure it's all working the way it needs to. Okay, so would like to take a moment and kind of run you through just one sample of one lesson and one quick objective to give you a feel for how this would actually play out in the classroom. So we're going to focus on lesson 1 in choice. And you've seen these objectives a little bit earlier when I showed you the sample PDF. Vision is a very important component of lesson 1. It carries through the whole program. And so in lesson 1, they start envisioning the life that they want to create and what their goals are. In lesson 4, there's an opportunity for a midterm reflection, maybe obstacles that have come up or unanticipated barriers that they have to overcome. And so they kind of reassess. And then at the end, they should be creating a personal vision statement to carry them forward. You can see the other objectives in here as well, but we are just going to focus right now on vision. So cute quote from, actually, it's a Dr. Seuss quote, but it was the intro to a National Institutes of Health journal article. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself in any direction you choose. And very interesting article talking about how the power of choice is essential for an individual's well-being, not just mentally, but physically as well. So you want to really dig into the impact of the power of choice. That's a great journal article to read. Happy to provide that to you. This is a take on Henry David Thoreau's quote, of course, but our founder, Gary Schoniger, twisted a little bit in saying that in order to create the life you imagine, you must first imagine the life you want to create. And a lot of times we don't provide students the space to really think about this. And that's where a lot of ownership comes in, rather than defaulting to a degree choice that they think they want. They really have an opportunity to explore what their own vision is. And so here's a concept pulled out of a lesson 1 PDF, really talking about vision and the why. Of course, with Simon Sinek in his work on Start With Why, we have him quoted in there as well. But I want to point out here that the bottom, the daily actions, the what, and the means, the how, a lot of times we focus in the student success course on the daily actions and giving students the tools that they need to be successful, teaching them how to take notes, teaching them how to manage their times, teaching them where the tutors are. But if we don't get up to the vision and the why, those daily actions begin to lack importance. It's only when the why exists that students are compelled and have a compelling vision that they're working towards, and the daily actions and how they use their time, investing their time versus spending it, becomes much more important. A reinforcing video case study for this concept is Brian Scudamore. You may recognize him as the founder and CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. He has a very compelling story as well. He really started with little more than $700 and a few flyers, and he just transformed a simple idea into a very successful business. But he has a powerful message on how he kind of came to a point with his organization of really needing to sit down and reflect on his vision. I won't play it now, but just because the videos tend to have a delay through the webinar, and so it's hard for webinar participants to actually hear in a meaningful way. But you would then play in the classroom a short clip picking a concept that you want to reinforce for students in listening to Brian's message on vision. You would follow that with a recommended discussion question. So we really focus on student-centered classrooms. The flipped classroom model works really well in this case, where they're consuming content before they come to class so that you can dig into specific concepts and have meaningful conversations. So this is an example of one discussion question out of the manual. You can create your own, or you can select with the options that we give you. But giving students the opportunity to discuss why creating a vision is an important part of an entrepreneurial mindset and student success. A sample reflection assignment is then giving students the opportunity to personally reflect on what their vision is, and a process for them to really start thinking about how this could work for them. And then they might take another step and apply it, and by applying it, maybe they need to go to see an academic advisor to choose a major that is in alignment with the vision that they're starting to create. And so this is where you start to achieve if you have a competency related to creating an academic plan, this would be the lesson assignment. And then there are some fillable PDFs, so you can use it for an online course or have it printed out, that give you some templates for helping students do this. Outcomes, you can see here the bottom two are some of the outcomes of what we just reviewed. So designing goals to reach our visions, creating a vision statement to guide our future plans. But also important in this lesson is helping students distinguish a reaction from a response, recognizing an internal versus external locus of control, and differentiating between spending versus investing time. So that's a little bit about the program. Before I jump into use cases, I just want to give you a quick preview. This is our Moodle course shell for Ice House student success. I wanted to give you a feel of the components. So for the introduction, the Who Owns the Ice House book is embedded in the learning management system. Then they would read the program PDF that I gave you a visual of earlier with the videos embedded. We introduced them to the Ice House entrepreneurs and students. So you can see there are 4 discussion questions options here. You'd probably pick one maybe to remain online and maybe one to use in the classroom. And then you just delete out what you're not using. And the entrepreneurial mindset self-assessment is in the introduction because you want them to complete that in the first week. Here's an example of lesson 1. It has quite a bit more. You have to look at this as sort of a data bank of a master course shell. Again, you're going to be selecting 1 or maybe 2 discussion questions, 1, maybe 2 application, and then the reflection assignments are in here as well. And you can see there's some supporting templates for exploring careers or creating student schedules. So I'm just going to open up and let's see if we can get connected here to one of the PDFs to give you a visual. This can be pulled up in a separate window. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can have this open on the side here. You can close it. Students would read through the content. And then when they get to a video, they can read and watch. So this intro actually only has 2 videos of students, and then they flip back to read. So just wanted to give you a feel for that. Okay, well, let's jump back into use cases. I do want to make sure we have some time for questions. So Ice House has been used with specific student populations, such as interdisciplinary students, developmental education, that was Pikes Peak, career and technical students. It's also been used with athletes, scholars, adult basic education. dual credit high school students, TRIO students. West Virginia University piloted with 500 academic probation students as a rescue course. So however you might be thinking about, and it can be offered also just to all college students, whether they're college ready or developmental ed. But we often have other pilots or examples that we can connect you to if you have a certain way you're thinking about adopting Ice House. These are some testimonials from a high school dual credit from a superintendent perspective of really trying to make sure that the high school students have the skills and the right mindset to be successful, no matter their situation or circumstances. And then a couple of the high school students, and these were actually ninth graders, talk about really the self-directed component of the program, that instead of being spoon-fed, it really helped her go out there and get the information herself. And then Leonardo talking about how he really felt it should be a mandatory class to pass or to graduate from high school. At Edmonds Community College in Washington, they did a comparative data study as well. It was their highest enrollment, lowest completion course. And they were trying to move it off the highest enrollment, lowest completion course list. With the Ice House section, they had 100% course completion, meaning no students dropped, and 90% student retention. But they tracked the students over a few years, and this is a smaller pilot than Pikes Peak. It was about 250 students. But they tracked the students over a few years and found that the Ice House students had 13% higher student GPAs in the 3.0 to 4.0 range. So they had very significant results. I love Teresa Alan's testimonial from rolling this pilot out, that if students learn that they have choices to better their life, they're more apt to own their educational process and become active directors of it rather than bystanders, simply meeting course requirements. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with Ice House. A few more slides. I just want you to know that we offer support in the form of facilitator certification training. We do on-sites at different institutions. We provide keynotes for professional development. A lot of times people just want to bring the thinking, the mindset to their organization as a whole, and work to first kind of redefine entrepreneurship and cultivate an entrepreneurial culture within the organization, even before necessarily rolling the program out. We provide professional development. I do quite a bit of help with providing data and content for grants that organizations are seeking to fund rollouts. And then we also provide thought leadership content. So we're always excited to partner with clients who want to write with us, or organizations or other partnerships of where we publish. And I'll share a couple examples of that right now. So we have three major national partners that we've worked to develop meaningful relationships with: the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship, the National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development, and the American Association of State Colleges and Universities. So Eli was selected as one of 14 corporate partners for ASCU, and they're reimagining the first year project that they're doing. They have 44 universities across the United States involved in it, and just returned last week from their innovation summit and working with leaders from all the universities. So we're very excited to be a part of RFY. We have worked with NISOD. We've conducted webinars with them, the Entrepreneurial Mindset for Student Success. We also published this white paper if you're interested in reading it. It's very, there's a lot of data in here. It's intended for new audiences to the entrepreneurial mindset, so redefining entrepreneurship. It's a short read. It's only three pages, but it's pretty rich with content, so happy to share that as well. And with NACCE, we're running a student success campaign where we're working to get to 10,000 mindsets. And so we have a number of community colleges that are a part of the student success campaign, and we welcome others as well. It's just a particular partnership that we're having with NACCE. We'll also be a pre-conference to their annual conference in October, although it's open to anyone, university, high school teachers, profit, nonprofit, government, anyone who'd like to be trained. We do 3 public trainings a year. We have a number of international partners. Here are some of them. Probably more specifically for this conversation is Tecnológico de Monterrey. We just returned from 2 weeks ago. We spent a week in Mexico. Tech is the most prestigious university in Mexico, sort of their Stanford or Yale. And we trained 175 teachers to roll out Ice House Student Success to 9,000 high school students next spring. So we're very, very excited about that partnership. Sometimes we have international participants on the webinars, and so I wanted to make sure to point that out. I mentioned before our next public facilitator training will be October 6th to the 8th. It's 2.5 days long. It'll be in Sacramento, and it is a pre-conference, so those who are NACCE members do get an NACCE member discount, but it is open to anyone. So I hope that you'll consider joining us for that. If you have next step questions, we can set up an Ice House preview show if you want to go in and review some of the content. If you think there are other stakeholders in your organization that you'd like to engage in this conversation, happy to set up, if you want to pull a meeting together with a dozen people and do a webinar similar to what I just did, happy to do that. We do have a student engagement webinar series that's been really popular, actually. And we just select a number of different student engagement concepts pulled out of the Ice House Student Success Program. Our next one is focused on the self-directed learner. It's July 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I think we already have quite a few people registered for that. So hope that you'll join us for that conversation. And then I already mentioned the facilitator training. I wanted to put my email on here in case you have any additional questions. And right now I'm going to go to and see if we have any questions in the panel. Okay, if you have any questions, please submit them. Otherwise, we'll wrap up, and I think it's okay to end webinars early. People don't mind having the extra time, and I hope that you can email us if you have any questions. We will do a follow-up email with the slide deck. And also a recording, hopefully. For the most part, the recordings work out. So as long as the recording was saved properly, we will post that and send you a link to that as well. Okay, we have one question here. Yes, the question is it possible to access the webinar again? Yes, and we will post that. We'll post this recording, and I do have the prior recording I did in January, so if there's any issues posting this one, we'll make sure to get you a link anyway. And very good question. What is the cost of the online program? Thank you for that question. For the 1 credit hour version, it is $79. And for the 3 credit hour version, it is $99 because it comes with more modules of content. And so that's essentially the course material fee for the students. And what they get is the Who Owns the Ice House companion text, the lesson content, the PDFs, and then all of the lesson assignments that come with it. And that also includes the Entrepreneurial Mindset self-assessment. Some institutions are using a course fee model so that students arrive the first day and essentially all they need is the access code. And so it makes for easier making sure that students have the materials from the first day of class, which can be an issue sometimes as well. Let's see. We have another question on the application to high school students and success stories. Thank you for that question. That's a great question. We just got yesterday an awesome video of high school students in Albuquerque who completed the Ice House program. It was a pilot that they were doing, and it's a great video. In fact, I will include it in the follow-up email so that you can watch it. But we haven't had as many high school rollouts as we have community college and universities, but we're starting to see it more and more across the United States. And of course, I mentioned Mexico. We have the 9,000 high school students going through it next spring. We'll be working to measure the impact of that significant rollout. But happy to also connect, if you're interested in a high school rollout, can connect you to clients who have rolled it out within a high school. And so I'll make sure that you get the video in the follow-up email. So another question we have is how would I recommend putting student success content into a 1 hour per week? Of course, that becomes a lot more challenging with the 1 credit hour, but we have had a number of clients who have used Ice House as a 1 credit hour. And so you just have to be a little bit more particular with how many lesson assignments that you're using. But again, with the flipped classroom model, you assume that students are consuming the content outside of class. And so they're reading the PDF, they're reading the book. And so by the time they come in, you're doing discussion questions or maybe an application assignment in the classroom. I think it just doesn't allow, as you're going to have less competencies that you're trying to achieve with 1 credit hour. So it's not impossible. You just have this great data bank of options, and you have to get it down to a reasonable amount of work for the student given the amount of time. But it is not, we've seen it done in a number of institutions, and happy to connect you to clients who've offered it as a 1 credit hour. I think the harder part is we provide so many great tools, and there's just limited time to use them all. But it has been effective. So let's see. A question on, do you have recordings of any previous self-directed learner webinars? We don't, but we will record the one on July 19th. We post our webinars on our website. This is a new series that we've started, the Student Engagement Webinar Series, and it's been really popular. People are really interested, especially kind of alumni, Ice House alumni who've been teaching it for a while, of hearing some new thought leadership from us on these different concepts and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve with the program. Another interesting thing we do is we bring in an Ice House facilitator and an Ice House student to provide perspective of how this is achieved in the classroom. So our last student engagement webinar, which I do have the link for, was focused on locus of control. And we had a West Virginia University faculty and student as a panel for it. The student had, in his first semester at the university, had a 0.9 GPA, came back, was required to take Ice House. When he understood like the difference between internal and external locus of control is very much a shifting point for him. It led him to a 3.8 GPA his second semester, and just a highly ambitious, very confident student who, just a powerful story that he shares. And then his faculty provides perspective of how locus of control is powerful in the classroom. The first webinar we did was on power of vision. So some of what you heard today, but digging a little bit deeper, and then a couple of faculty from Colorado Springs and Albuquerque, and a student as well. So how do you recommend training multiple faculty to become Ice House facilitators? So typically for a large scale initiative, if you're looking to do a larger rollout, there's a couple ways to do it. We do many on-site facilitator trainings. To come on-site, we require a minimum of 25 faculty and staff to be trained. Some examples of that we've done this year is we've been to the University of Akron, we've been to Marietta College. This fall we'll be at West Virginia University. They're looking to scale up. San Joaquin Delta College. And so when they're trying to specifically cultivate an entrepreneurial culture, it helps when we come. Gary Schoeniger, our founder, does the keynote, and we encourage you to invite the entire campus to help understand our philosophy. And then we go into a 2.5-day training with faculty and staff. And if you'd like a contract proposal model for that, happy to provide that. But another way to do it, if you're feeling like your institution, it would be challenging to move into a large scale rollout, is we say, send 3 to 5 key stakeholders to a public training to be your champions to go back and champion a larger scale rollout, or consider just doing the one day as a part of a professional development week with a keynote and breakout sessions. We do those as well. So another kind of easier way to just get the conversation started is to order Who Owns the Ice House, the book. And if you look on our website at elimindset.com/book group, we actually provide a great book discussion guide as well as intro clips of Clifton. And you could start just a book group just to engage people in the conversation to want to learn more about the program. So hopefully those are a couple of good ideas. It is imperative to receive facilitator training in order to run the program. That's a question that was just asked. We have seen it not go well without the training, mostly because of the philosophy behind it and the way it's delivered. So the training consists of a lot of thought leadership from Gary on the philosophy of the program, kind of the social and behavioral sciences component, but then we do get through facilitating all 8 life lessons, as well as providing participants the opportunity to practice facilitation. But we engage the trainees as students of the program. And so within the 2.5 days, you go through the opportunity discovery process as well from a student perspective. And that's really, we found that to be critical for the success of the rollout. Is it possible to receive review copies of the workbook and teacher's edition? Yes, we do have a preview shell that we could sign you in. We don't have there's no printed content. And so happy to provide you access to a preview of Ice House Student Success. And so you could kind of get a feel, you could read the course introduction, look at some of the tools that come with it, look through lesson 1, look through how the opportunity discovery canvas works. I'm happy to provide that. And yes, I'm happy to do webinars exclusively with staff and faculty for your organization. So please contact me as a follow-up, and would be happy to schedule that. So you guys have been very engaging. Thank you for all your awesome questions. If there are any last questions, I'll give just a moment here. And hopefully I answered them to your satisfaction. If I didn't, please feel free to follow up with me and let me know if I can more specifically answer your question. So I think, a couple more. Let's see. So someone's on the line who's completed the Ice House Facilitator training, and when they began to roll the training out to others, is there contact that's needed from our office? If they are, I'm not sure I quite understand the question exactly, but when you're ready to roll out the program, we do have a bookstore online for submitting orders, but I don't feel like that's quite the question that's being asked here. Maybe let's have that one be a follow-up question, and I'm happy to get more specific with my answer. And my contact info, again, I'll go back to this slide, is Bree, BREE, at elimindset.com. And in the follow-up email with the link to the slide deck and the webinar, you'll also have my email as well as my phone number. If you'd like to contact me, I'm happy to set up a phone call with you if you have want to dig deeper into some of your questions. All right, great. I wanted to say thank you for joining me today, for being such an engaging audience. It's been a joy to share with you the Ice House Student Success Program. I can say that I've seen it rolled out in a large scale way. I helped implement it. I was in classrooms while students were engaging in this mindset. In my 10 years in higher education, I've seen few things work to engage students the way that Ice House has. And so would love to work with you on a rollout within a high school, college, or a university setting, and hope that we continue the conversation. Thanks again.